India has been forced to shut its consular camps in Canada days after Khalistanis attacked it. The MEA has today called out the Canadian police for failing to provide security to the consular camp despite special requests made in the light of Khalistani attacks. This is more embarrassment for Trudeau, but is a move that is expected to impact services for Indians in Canada. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police and the Canadian authorities have also been exposed completely, not just for failing to secure consular camp of a foreign country, which is their duty, but also, in turn, an earlier attack on Indian devotees after they faced the Khalistani and their wrath upon them. Let's listen in to what the MEA had to say to this.
Yes, you would have seen the message posted by our consulate in Toronto that they have had to cancel the consular camp that they were planning to organize over the weekend because they did not get adequate security or security assurance from the host government. So that was the reason why these consular camps have been cancelled. As you know, we have a large diaspora in Canada. Many of these people, especially around the month of November, December, they need several documentation for continuation of their pensions and several other activities here in India. So this consular camp that we do is helpful to the community, to both people of Indian nationality and people who are of Indian origin but Canadian nationals today. So that is the reason why the consular camps have had to be cancelled. But I do understand that in other parts of Canada, Vancouver for example, the consular camps will be conducted. These consular camps are conducted at the request of the community organizations. So where the community organization is comfortable, we'll go ahead with.
Let's talk about this. Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, former diplomat, with us on the program. Major General Shashi Asthana, defense expert, also with us on the show. Surinder Singh Lali, international affairs expert, joins us on the program as well. Last but by no means the least, Professor Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, also joins us on the program. Professor Nalapat, I'll begin with you, sir. Well, it's very, very apparent, sir, that whatever is happening to the Hindu community per se, as well as the diplomats in Canada, the authorities, the agencies who are supposed to protect them are complicit in this lack or lapse of security. Had something like this, Professor Nalapat, transpired in India towards the Canadians, in fact the whole world, including the Wall Street Journal, would be talking about this. But the fact of the matter is that Canada has its own agenda. They seem to be obfuscating at this point in time, but it definitely calls for a stricter action by the Indian authorities to send a message to Canada. So far, whatever we have told them doesn't seem to be making much of a difference.
Well, Vineet, I'd like to point out that it's not simply one community, but all communities who have settled in Canada from India, and there are a major number of Hindus, also Sikhs, and as well as Christians. All three communities are represented there, and all three are going to suffer very badly because of this. And frankly, they're not going to be happy at all. And I'm quite surprised that the Toronto police have made this admission, because it doesn't speak well for Toronto as a safe investment.
All right, so there seems to be a problem with your frame. We have lost you. Perhaps we'll try and repatch you. I'm also going to rope in Ambassador Mukherjee into this conversation. Ambassador Mukherjee, you as a diplomat, as a former diplomat, how do you feel about this situation? How preposterous is this treatment towards diplomats, first of all? We'll talk about the Indian community also, but definitely, I'm the son of a diplomat. I have lived my life all across the world, and I understand how sensitive and volatile a situation is when you're dealing with a diplomat. Even when you get pulled over by the police in, say, Europe or the United States with your diplomatic plates, they handle you with kid gloves. But what we're seeing in Canada is the exact opposite, ma'am.
Absolutely, as you say, it is outrageous and it is a violation of all conventions which govern the responsibilities of the host country vis-a-vis diplomats, the safety of diplomats, etc. In this particular case, it also violates the obligation of the Canadian government towards their own citizens, because you had correctly pointed out, and also the MEA spokesperson, that these consular camps are held at the request of the community concerned. So this particular consular camp in Toronto, I presume, must have been organized at the request of the community there. And if enough security is not provided, then naturally the camp has to be cancelled, given the attacks which have taken place, unjustified attacks, violent attacks which have taken place on Hindu temples, on Hindus, on minorities of other religions. So it is not clear to me what the Canadian security authorities are thinking of by neglecting their duties in this manner, because if they do so, the community is going to suffer because of their requirements towards the end of the year for attestation of various documents, for travel documents, for various other requirements which they need. Also, some of them are pensioners, which means that they need to get their life certificate attested to get their pension for another year. So some of these activities can perhaps be done online, but others require the physical presence of the consular officer, the attestation, etc. It is not clear to me how this is going to be organized, but I do hope that with adequate pressure put on the Canadian government, the security services in Toronto will provide the security so that this consular camp can be held. You had mentioned that there will be one, or I think their spokesperson had mentioned there will be one held in Vancouver. I hope that adequate security will be provided in Vancouver, and it is not clear to me why they cannot provide security in Toronto, but we should also think of reciprocal measures, because it's not acceptable that we give them full security 24/7 here in India, in both for their High Commission and all their consulates, and the same is not done on a reciprocal basis for us. The whole purpose of diplomatic relations is sovereign reciprocity. That's the whole point of sovereignty. If there is no sovereign reciprocity, then we have to think of measures which would indicate how concerned we are and how displeased we are at this kind of behavior.
Let me in fact rope in Professor Nalapat once again. Professor Nalapat, we lost you, sir, in the middle there. There was a problem with the connection. Please continue, sir, from where you left off.
Well, I'd like to point out that the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, has made a statement condemning the Brampton attack and other violent matters. But does the Toronto police action mean that the Prime Minister is powerless in Toronto? Or does it mean that he is less than sincere in his expression of concern for the violence that has taken place? The fact of the situation is, Vineet, that it's very clear that for some reason these individuals have a free run in Canada. I remember a time when Wahhabi terrorists had a free run in the United States and the UK, and that is before 9/11. And in the UK, of course, subsequent to the tube attack and other things, they had a relatively free run. Now this is going on in Canada, and it's only a matter of time before this kind of violence hits Canada as well, in the sense that not just a particular community, but others as well. And I would like to point out very clearly, Vineet, this affects all communities who are of Indian origin. And when you have situations in which all communities of Indian origin are affected, that is certainly going to have a negative impact on public opinion. Yes, you may have a few individuals who somehow found themselves to be leaders of some political parties which presently have some strength in Parliament, who are in favor of this kind of inactivity by the police when armed violence is taking place. It's very clear the Toronto police have chosen to be inactive, whether it's because they've been infiltrated by this kind of element or whether they have orders from above. It's hard to say, but it's clear that they have been infiltrated in some way or the other. And in any case, it's a very sorry example for Canada to show the world. And I would like to point out very clearly, this is something that I think India needs to take up with other countries as well, including the Five Eyes partners, the G7 partners. The government of India needs to take it up very strongly. And above all, Vineet, I want to stress the importance of giving full publicity to the real truth about these nefarious elements. And there's no point in just going G to G, government to government. The other government is just not listening, is not willing to listen. You have to go not only G to P, that is government to people or government to civil society, but civil society to civil society. And I hope that will be done very soon, because frankly, this is completely and totally unacceptable, and it's a flagrant violation, as Ambassador Mukherjee has said, of all diplomatic norms, and frankly, all responsibilities of a functioning government. Thank you, Vineet.
Absolutely. And General Asthana, a flagrant violation of everything diplomatic that exists between these two countries. And of course, look at the security apparatus, General Asthana, how weak it has fallen when it comes to the safety of people, who have traveled thousands of miles to be in this country, who have left so much behind, to add to and contribute towards the economy of Canada, which, by the way, is not doing well. The employment situation in Canada is also berserk at this time and place. But yet, there is a softness towards radicalism that the Canadian agencies and the government is advocating. What should we do?
See, shielding the radicalized elements, criminals and terrorists is a dangerous game. America learnt it only after 9/11. Canada is yet to learn it. And many in Canada itself have said that Canadian government, especially Justin Trudeau, has failed to distinguish between who is a secular Indian or a secular Sikh or a secular, Canadian and who is not. So therefore, there is a problem which Canada will soon realize, because there is no traction of Khalistan in India, but I am very sure that Canada will have a Khalistan very soon if Trudeau doesn't mend his ways and if Canada doesn't mend his ways. That's number one. Your question relates to what can be done or what should be done. I think as far as the government to government is concerned, as was rightly brought out, the MEA has taken up the case. I don't think there can be anything less than what the Prime Minister speaking directly and Prime Minister giving a tweet directly. It has rarely happened, but that shows the kind of concern which India has for the people who are there, who are actually Canadian people, but being of Indian origin, that is the kind of concern we have. And he has flagged two issues. One is, of course, regarding the treatment of the minorities and the treatment of and the vandalization of the Hindus, and also the intimidation of the diplomats. He's pointed out two things. Now, there were also crocodile tears by Justin Trudeau, wherein he did make a tweet, but in that tweet he certainly did not say anything as to who did it, and he also did not say as to what he is going to do. Because as a responsible leader, one should say, okay, this has happened, I condemn it, and we will make sure that everybody is punished. Everybody who has done it is punished. Now, this line was missing from his tweet. He only said that we condemn the violence, and that's it. So that means I am going to sleep hereafter. I have just condemned it to fulfill the formality. Now, I think I'll go a step further as far as the reaction is concerned. In addition to what we are doing at the government level, even society to society, people, all secular people in Canada must unite. All Indians must unite, and they must put pressure on their governments and the lawmakers who are there. There are many who wants to speak that language and who are seeking justice. and there are many who have also pointed out that Justin Trudeau is not distinguishing between who is a secular Sikh or otherwise. See, today, a rough calculation, there are 8 lakh Sikhs there, but there are not more than 8,000 guys who are criminals, who are trying to do all these criminal activities and trying to save themselves under the garb of freedom of speech. And the distinction between the two has to be very clear. And even those people, the Sikh party has also disowned Justin Trudeau. So that's another line, because everybody knows that Justin Trudeau is about to sink. So a sinking ship is now trying to do all what he can to justify that whatever he was doing was right. We also had the case of, shall I say, we also must flag a similar case, there is an agency person of Canada who is involved in the murder of one of the awardee, Shaurya Chakra awardee in Punjab. Now, they took up a case, concocted case, but we have a case where we have a credible evidence. We must highlight it to the rest of the world in the manner in which they try to highlight, so that they also know that we are also now monitoring all the criminals who are attached with their institutes or their security agencies. That was the Canadian Border Security Police, Security Agency, yeah. So that was the agency, CBSA, which is accused of that murder. Similarly, all other cases where we have the dossiers of all the people whose extradition we have asked for, that should be put on social media, and I think we must use the social media handles very appropriately. We know that a lot of families are concerned in India of people who are there in Canada. I am sure those families can start putting out a fair amount of social media campaign to put some pressure on Canada as well, because the social media is same, the handles are same, whether it is Canada or India. So I think a lot can be done, and the support can be galvanized to put pressure on Canadian police who seem to be radicalized. And these are some of the actions which I can think of. Vineet.
Mr. Lally, the Canadian police, is it radicalized? Well, we have an example in one of those officers who, instead of protecting those people who were being attacked, was sloganing against them. This is obviously an example, a microcosm, or a suggestion of how penetrated, the government of Canada is when it comes to the Khalistani element.
Thank you, Vineet. And I think taking a cue from what Professor Nalapat said, the word free run, I think that explains it all. In Vineet, there wasn't just one attack, there were 2 attacks, one at the Surrey temple and one at the Brampton temple.
Correct.
And Vineet, look at the penetration of the K element, that out of the 338 member parliaments, barring, Chandan Arya and Kevin Wong, who happens to be an independent, not one in their condemnation of this has mentioned the K word in it. That ought to give you an idea of the free run and to, how badly the Canadian polity has been affected with this cancer. Yes, as Journalist Thana also said, and you also mentioned, that gentleman is Harinder Sohi, who happens to be, an officer in the Peel Police Department. And by the Canadian laws, it's a criminal offense, even if it's on an off day, for an officer to be a part of a campaign, of a procession, of a rampage which has gone violent and outside the temple. I mean, he had every reason after the due course of laws established to be fired, but he is only been suspended from now. And the second is also another gentleman, a convict from India called Sandeep Singh Sandhu, who's now superintendent in the Canadian Border Service Agency, who's involved in the murder of Balwinder Singh Sandhu, who's a Shaurya Chakra winner. So Vineet, the problem I feel now is that this cancer is right from the top to the bottom, and now it's gotten so bad that even, there's a Jewish, there are a few Jewish organizations who've gone on record and condemned it. but nobody on the Canadian soil who's part of the dispensation is. So, can you imagine to what extent these key elements have penetrated when the Prime Minister is kind of beholden and eats out of their hand, and so as lower officers down in the ranks?
Absolutely right. Well, we are also nearing towards the end of our program. I'm going to take.
Can I?
Yeah, I'll come to you. I'll come to you, Mr. Lari. I'll come to you once again for your concluding thoughts. We'll start with Professor Nalapat. Professor Nalapat, while the situation seems to be ongoing, nothing seems to be working. Well, what people have pinned their hopes on is the fact that if there is a change in government, if you have the Conservatives coming in, then perhaps there could be better days ahead for the Indian community. Your stance, sir.
Look, Vineet, I'd like to point out that in law, you need a mens rea, a guilty mind, and an actus reus, a guilty action. This is not just a mens rea, a guilty mind, but an actual actus reus, actual action. Many of these people have participated in criminal activity designed to commit violence, which have often succeeded in taking away lives and causing various untoward situations such as explosions. So, when you have action and a guilty mind, it's a clear case for criminal action under the old style British jurisprudence that Canada claims to be working under. I wonder what the Governor General of Canada is doing about this. He has been appointed by the Crown in England, and the law which has been established in Canada basically is supposed to follow that. I think, frankly, that very clear message needs to be given to the Governor General, pointing out the difference between speech and speech joined with action, and saying that now action needs to be taken on the part of Mr. Trudeau's government. The Governor General now needs to act if Justin Trudeau is not acting. And of course, one point that is raised by Surinder, that nobody is speaking out. Well, Surinder, let me tell you, I've been to Punjab, I've been to Kashmir, and I found very few people, almost nobody speaking out. And the few, I remember in the Punjab, for example, there was a time when policemen, very brave policemen, Sikh policemen, any of them who not only spoke out but who apprehended the handful of K elements, very soon their families were targeted. And for some time, there was an atmosphere of fear until, of course, we had a different situation after we had a very effective police chief there who was himself a Sikh and who surrounded himself with Sikh bodyguards. That's when the situation turned around. So I'd only like to say that a lot of it can be explained by sheer fear of what can happen to you, plus the knowledge, the certain knowledge that Justin Trudeau's government, for whatever reason, is completely either powerless or unwilling to take any action against the K people. That is now very clear. They have a free run across Canada, and I think this is very unfortunate, and it tarnishes the image of Canada, a wonderful country, by the way, a country I have a lot of regard and respect for. It tarnishes in a very bad way. Justin Trudeau is not just harming people of one community or Indian ethnicity. He's harming not only himself, but he's harming the people of Canada, and I hope during the elections that becomes clear, and I hope his bad example will not be followed by whoever his successors are, Vinny.
All right, Ambassador Mukherjee, closing thoughts, ma'am.
Well, it would appear to me that even after Trudeau is gone, there may not be a substantial improvement, because after all, let us remember that the leader of the opposition cancelled the Diwali festivities, and the leader of the opposition has been very lukewarm in condemning what's happening. I would in fact underline the importance of the people of the Indian community in Canada uniting themselves and demanding their rights be restored, their right to liberty, the right to security, etc. If they don't do that, then it is not possible for India to protect them from outside. They have to learn to protect themselves also. We are there to protect them from outside. They have to learn to demand their rights and demand that rule of law which applies to every Canadian citizen be applied to them. It is a fact that they have not been very vociferous in demanding their rights, and nor have they been very effective in warding off violent attacks on them by 3 or 4 people. In my perspective, it is high time that they learned also to become much more aggressive in demanding those rights. Because if it is not done, there is no guarantee that when Trudeau goes and the leader of opposition becomes Prime Minister, if he does, that there will be a substantial improvement in the situation. Because at the moment, it would appear to me that every Canadian politician is pandering to this tiny fringe minority, which apparently can swing the vote in 2 or 3 states in a significant manner. So the minorities have to learn to demand their rights and stand up for it. We here in India will pledge to do the same. And as I said, one way of doing it is also to ensure reciprocal treatment for Canadian High Commission and consulates here.
Absolutely. General Asthana, 30 seconds, and Mr. Lali, 30 seconds. We've completely run out of time, please. General Asthana?
Organize the self-defense part of it. That is one. Secondly, we have been, in every forum, we have been talking about terrorism against Pakistan, or the acts of, trying to expose the acts of terrorism of Pakistan. I think we will have to do the same thing and add Canada to that list, and continue to do the same in every possible forum, whoever is speaking in whatever form. Back to you.
Mr. Lali?
Thank you, Vineet. And Vineet, if I look at the pictures also, most people inside the temple availing the services of the Indian consulate happen to be Sikh. They were wearing turbans. So I think let's call it Hindu plus Sikh versus the K gang, but not the Hindu versus Sikh.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.